There are moments in life, there are moments in life you don't choose. They choose you. And on that rainy Chicago dawn, when Isolde Renner stumbled, bloodied, into a stranger's arms, she didn't know she was stumbling into her own fate. He was Cassian Moretti, the kind of man smart people avoid, head of an empire built on secrets, bought loyalties, and promises that never expire. A man who swore he'd never save anyone again after trust cost his father's life. She was a woman running from a past that hunted her with obsession and violence. Adrian Volkov, tycoon, predator, the kind of love that cages you before you realize the doors are locked. Please, help me. 2 words, one choice, and everything collapses. Because when you ask the wrong man for help, you're not just asking for protection. You're starting a war. And wars have a price, paid in blood, loyalty, and everything you swore you'd never lose. Scene 1. The collision. Rain falls over Chicago like the sky is crying for crimes that haven't been committed yet. It's that kind of heavy, cold rain that soaks you to the bone and turns the city into a blur of yellow lights and shadows dancing on the old stones of the financial district. The streets are empty. It's 3 in the morning, the hour when only the desperate and the dangerous are still awake. Isolde Renner runs. It's not a graceful run. It's the run of someone who's already fallen twice, who lost a shoe 3 blocks back, who tastes blood in her mouth mixed with the metallic bite of pure fear. Her lungs burn like someone lit a fire inside them, every breath coming in short, desperate bursts that fog in the icy air. The suitcase she drags is old, the zipper broken, the handle torn so it thumps the ground with every step, making a sound that echoes down the empty streets like a countdown. Inside that suitcase is all that's left of her life, some clothes, fake documents that cost $3,000, and a photo of her father she can't throw away, even knowing he's probably dead. Blood runs from her right temple, hot against frozen skin, the result of Adrian shoving her into the apartment wall before she managed to escape down the fire stairs. She can feel the blood mixing with the rain, sliding down her neck, staining the collar of the white blouse that's now see-through and stuck to her body. She turns the corner near Madison Street, and for a moment, just a moment, she thinks maybe she made it. Maybe this time is different. Maybe this time he won't find her. But then she hears it. The sound of an engine easing up behind her, the flare of headlights reflected in puddles, and her heart kicks even harder if that's possible. She doesn't look back. She never looks back, because if she looks back, she'll see his ice blue eyes, and she'll stop, and if she stops, she dies. Maybe not physically, but in every way that matters. Isolde takes another corner, this one narrower, and suddenly there's a private bar, the kind of place with no sign, just a smoked glass door and lighting too soft to be inviting. There are men outside, 3, maybe 4, all in black suits, all standing like statues, all looking at her like she's a problem they need to assess. And then she collides with him. It isn't a wall, it's a man, and he doesn't move. Isolde hits his chest hard enough to knock the air out of her, what's left of it, and her hands clutch at his suit jacket on instinct to keep from falling. The fabric is expensive, she notes absurdly. Cashmere blended with wool, the kind of thing Adrian used to wear. But this man doesn't smell like Adrian, not like $1,000 French cologne and sweet lies. He smells like cigarettes, rain, and something deeper, something like gunpowder and danger. She looks up, and for the first time since she started running, she stops. The man is tall. She has to tip her head back to see his face. His eyes are dark, so dark they almost look black under the weak streetlight, and he studies her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle in a way that has nothing to do with fear. It isn't cruelty. It isn't desire. It's assessment. Like he's weighing her value, deciding if she's worth the problem she's clearly dragging in with her. His jaw is strong, rough with a 2 or 3 day beard, and there's a small scar above his left brow. Old, healed, but visible. He isn't handsome in the traditional sense. He's more magnetic, dangerous, the kind of man your mother warned you to avoid and exactly the kind you couldn't. Behind him, the men in black move, hands slipping inside jackets where Isolde knows there are guns. She grew up in Boston. She knows enough about urban hierarchies to recognize power when she sees it. And this man? He isn't just powerful. He's the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself. Please. Isolde's voice comes out broken, ragged from running, trembling with fear and exhaustion. Her fingers are still fisted in his jacket, and she feels her legs buckling, her body finally giving out after 40 straight minutes of sprinting. Help me. The words come out like a plea, like a prayer, like the last thing she has to offer. The man doesn't answer immediately. His eyes drop to her bleeding temple, then to her scraped hands, the wrists ringed with bruises in the shape of fingers, Adrian's fingers, and then back to her face. There's something in the way he looks that makes Isolde feel like he's seeing everything, not just the blood and the injuries, but the whole story written on her skin. Who's chasing you? His voice is low, controlled, every word cut with surgical precision. Not the voice of someone asking out of curiosity. The voice of someone who needs to know the size of the problem that literally fell into his arms. Isolde swallows, tasting blood and bile. Someone who doesn't know when to stop. She answers, and even in the middle of panic, there's something almost funny about how that line sums up 3 years of nightmare. He tilts his head, eyes narrowing a fraction, and for a second, Isolde thinks he'll just shove her aside, tell her to move on, say her problem isn't his problem. She wouldn't blame him. She's a bloodied stranger clinging to him in a rainy, God-forsaken hour. Who in their right mind would get involved? But then he looks over her shoulder, toward the street she came from, like he can see through rain and dark. The muscles in his jaw flex, a decision being made in real time. He lifts his hand, just 2 fingers, a simple, economical gesture. Get her to the car. Now he doesn't look back at the men behind him, his voice slicing through the rain like a blade. One of the men, gray hair, a scar across his nose, frowns. Cassian, he starts, warning in his tone. Now, Matteo. The man, Cassian, repeats, and this time there's no room to argue. Isolde feels firm, but not rough hands guiding her, prying her fingers from Cassian's jacket, steering her toward a black car parked a few yards away. It's a BMW, dark-tinted windows, plates she'd better fake or registered to a name that doesn't exist. She looks back once, just once, and Cassian is still there, standing in the rain like it doesn't touch him. He lights a cigarette. Where did that come from? And the ember lights his face for a second, highlighting those dark eyes fixed on the direction she came from. Like he's waiting. Like he wants to see who's crazy enough to chase a woman through Chicago streets at 3 a.m. And Isolde, as she slides into the back seat beside a dark-haired, sharp-eyed woman who doesn't say a word, thinks, I just asked the wrong man for help, or maybe the only right one. The car pulls away, and she watches Cassian vanish in the rear view, swallowed by rain and cigarette smoke. And something inside her, something that's been broken so long she forgot what whole felt like, cracks a little more. But this time, the crack lets the light in. Scene 2. The weight of a name. The car cuts across the city in silence, only the rain drumming on the roof and the whisper of tires on wet road. Isolde's in the back seat, a blanket thrown over her shoulders by the dark-haired, sharp-eyed woman who introduced herself as Rosa. She doesn't look like the kind of person who hands out blankets out of kindness. She looks like the kind who calculates the price of everything. Where are you taking me? Isolde asks, her voice still shaky but steadier now that the adrenaline's ebbing. Away from whoever's hunting you. Rosa doesn't look at her when she answers, just types something on her phone. The screen's glow lighting her face. Cassian doesn't usually do this. Do what? Save people. Isolde shuts her eyes, pain throbbing in her temple in time with her heartbeat. She didn't ask to be saved. She just asked not to die in that street, with Adrian's name the last thing she'd hear. They reach a house on the shores of Lake Michigan, tucked among trees and tall fences that promise privacy and something darker, seclusion. The house is modern, all glass and dark wood, with soft lights that make it look cozy, but Isolde knows enough about pretty cages not to be fooled. Mateo takes her to a room upstairs. It's clean, it smells like laundry and cedar. There's a big window over the lake, the black water reflecting the moon like a shattered mirror. He says nothing as he leaves, just locks the door from the outside. Isolde sits on the edge of the bed, hands shaking as she peels off her soaked coat. She looks at the locked door, then at the window. There's nowhere to run. Not this time. But for the first time in years, she doesn't feel Adrian's breath on her neck, and that has to count for something. Scene 3. The Man Who Doesn't Trust. Cassian gets to the house 2 hours later, shoulders wet with rain, cigarette still between his fingers. He steps into the office where Mateo and Rosa are waiting, their faces saying everything he already knows. This was a mistake. I ran her name. Rosa turns the laptop toward him, the screen showing a photo of Isolde smiling at some formal event, hair up, blue dress. She looks different. Whole. Isolde Renner, 29, financial analyst, worked at 3 firms in the last 5 years. No complaints, no legal issues, until 6 months ago. And 6 months ago? Cassian sits, eyes on the screen. She vanished. Resigned by email, canceled the apartment, cut off her family. Rosa pauses, and Adrian Volkov's name showed up in 3 of her banking transactions. The room's air goes cold. Volkov isn't a name you toss around lightly. A Russian magnate with business spread up and down the East Coast, from New York to Boston, and everyone knows the legal part is just the tip of the iceberg. She with Volkov? Mateo asks, arms crossed, posture rigid. She was. Rosa closes the laptop. Or she was running from him. Hard to tell. Cassian leans back, fingers drumming the desk. He doesn't act on impulse. Every decision he makes is calculated, weighed, measured. But in that street, when she looked at him with those green eyes full of fear and hope, something in him moved before logic had its say. And now he's got a woman tied to one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast, sleeping upstairs. I want to talk to her. Tomorrow morning, he crushes the cigarette in the ashtray, the ember dying slow. And if she's a problem? Mateo asks, voice low but steady. Cassian looks at him, and there's something in his eyes Mateo knows too well. Determination mixed with something dangerously close to stubbornness. Then I deal with it. Scene 4. The Weight of the Truth. Isolde wakes to the smell of coffee and something baking. For a second, she forgets where she is, her brain still stuck in some nightmare where Adrian finds her, where she can never run fast enough. Then she opens her eyes and sees the window, the lake, the morning light coming in soft, and reality hits like a punch. The door opens without a knock, and Rosa steps in with a tray. Coffee, toast, fruit. She sets it on the side table and sits in the armchair by the window, crossing her legs like she owns the place. You're lucky to be alive. Rosa doesn't smile, but there's no cruelty either, just fact. I know. Isolde sits up, taking the coffee Rosa hands her. Cassian wants to talk. He's going to ask things you won't want to answer. Rosa studies her, dark eyes skimming her face like she's reading a book. But if you lie, it'll be worse. Isolde sips the coffee slow, letting the heat burn her tongue a little. Small pain. Pain she controls. I didn't lie when I asked for help. No, but you didn't tell the whole truth either. Rosa stands, smoothing her blazer. And here, half-truths are expensive. 20 minutes later, Isolde's in the living room, a glass table between her and Cassian. He stands by the window, his back to her, hands in his pockets. Mateo leans against the wall by the door, and Rosa's on the sofa opposite, laptop open on her knees. Adrian Volkov. Cassian says the name without turning, but it fills the room like toxic smoke. Isolde's stomach twists. She knew this was coming. She knew she'd have to say out loud what she's lived these last years. I met him at a finance conference in New York. He was charming, attentive. She looks down at her hands, fingers laced in her lap. At first. And then? Cassian finally turns, those dark eyes pinned on her. Then he started cutting me off from everything. Friends, family, work, said it was to protect me, that the world was too dangerous. Isolde draws a breath. When I found out my father had disappeared, he said it was coincidence. But I found files, emails. My father was investigating ties between shell companies and money laundering, and Adrian's name was in all of them. Rosa and Matteo trade a look. Cassian doesn't move. Is your father dead? Cassian asks, voice neutral but not cruel. I don't know. Isolde feels the burn of tears, but doesn't let them fall. He vanished 8 months ago, and when I tried to go to the police, Adrian found out. He said if I talked to anyone, he'd finish what he started. So you ran. I tried. 3 times. He always found me. Isolde finally meets Cassian's eyes, and there's something fierce in hers now, something that won't bend. Until yesterday. Cassian studies her for a long beat, and then he does something that surprises even Matteo. He sits in the armchair across from her, elbows on his knees, close enough that she can smell the cigarettes and the rain on him. You're asking a man you don't know for protection. He speaks slow, every word chosen. Why should I put myself against Volkov? Isolde doesn't hesitate. Because you already did. The moment you put me in that car, you picked a side. The silence that follows is dense, heavy as fog. Then Cassian smiles, not a happy smile, but the kind that recognizes a truth when it hears one. Matteo, double security. Rosa, run everything you can on Volkov's companies. He stands, eyes still on Isolde. And you stay here until I figure out exactly what to do with you. Isolde nods, but when Cassian leaves the room, she feels something she hasn't felt in months, the smallest spark of hope. Scene 5, cigarettes and silences. It's near midnight when Isolde gives up on sleep. She pads downstairs, bare feet silent on the wood. The house is quiet, only the distant sound of the lake hitting the shore. She finds Cassian on the terrace, cigarette between his fingers, eyes lost in the dark. She hesitates, then takes another step. He hears her. Of course he does, but doesn't turn, doesn't send her away. You don't sleep? Isolde asks softly. Sometimes. He takes a long drag, the ember lighting his face for a second. You? Not much. She moves to the railing, looking out at the lake. Not lately. They stay quiet for a while, and it's strange how the silence doesn't feel awkward, like they both know some things don't need words. You don't trust me. Isolde says it as fact, not a question. No. Cassian answers without hesitation. But you brought me here. Yes. Isolde turns her face toward him, and for the first time she sees him for real. Not the mob boss, not the dangerous man. Just a tired man holding a cigarette, like it's the only thing that still makes sense. Why? Cassian finally looks at her, and his eyes are darker than the night around them. Because you asked. The words hang there, and Isolde feels something shift in her chest, something warm and dangerous. She looks away before he notices. My father died because he trusted the wrong person. Cassian says suddenly, voice low, like a confession. Since then, I don't save anyone. Isolde looks at him, and there's old, well-kept pain in his eyes. But you saved me. Cassian crushes the cigarette, fingers grinding the ember harder than necessary. I haven't decided yet if that was a mistake. Isolde smiles, small and sad. When you decide, let me know. Cassian doesn't answer, but when she goes back inside, he keeps staring at where she stood, and the ember of the cigarette he just put out still burns invisible between them. Scene 6. Cracks in the Empire. The next few days pass in a strange routine. Isolde stays in the house, reads books she finds in the library, helps Rosa sort financial papers, because sitting still makes her crazy, and avoids Cassian as much as possible. Not because he's cruel, but because every time he's in the same room, the air gets heavier, more charged. But Cassian's empire is bleeding. A shipment disappears. An important contact turns up dead in a Detroit hotel. An operation that should have been secret gets intercepted by the police before it even starts. And it all started after Isolde arrived. This isn't a coincidence. Leo Moretti, Cassian's younger brother, slams a folder onto the conference table hard enough to scatter papers. He's 27, messy blonde hair, the kind of smile that makes people drop their guard. But right now, the smile is dead. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Cassian asks, voice calm but dangerous. "I'm saying she shows up and suddenly everything falls apart." Leo points toward the ceiling, where Isolde's in her room. "Volkov's smart. He could have planted her here." Matteo folds his arms, face unreadable. "He's not wrong, Cassian." Rosa, though, shakes her head. "If Volkov wanted to plant someone, he'd pick someone less obvious." Isolde's marked, hurt, desperate. That's not infiltration. That's survival. "Or exactly what he wants us to think," Leo presses. Cassian rises, eyes cold on his brother. "No one touches her until I have proof." End of story. Leo laughs, humorless. "You're blind, Cassian, and we're all going to pay for it." When the meeting ends, Cassian heads up to Isolde's room. She's sitting on the bed, a book open on her lap, but he knows she isn't reading. She heard everything. "They think I'm a spy," Isolde says before he can speak. "Yes." "And you?" Cassian watches her for a long moment. "I think if you were a spy, you'd be better at it." Isolde almost laughs, but it dies before it starts. "I can help." She closes the book. "Let me see the financial records. If someone's leaking, there'll be a pattern." Cassian hesitates, then nods, because if there's one thing he's learned about Isolde in the last few days, it's that she doesn't sit around waiting to be saved. She fights. Scene 7. The pattern. Isolde spends 2 days locked in the office with Rosa, eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets, transactions, ghost accounts. She knows this kind of work. It's what she did before Adrian turned her into a prisoner. And then she sees it. Small transfers, always in different amounts, always to accounts that disappear after a month. But they all have one thing in common. They were all approved by the same person. Leo Moretti. Isolde's stomach flips. She doesn't want to be the one to bring this news, but she also can't stay quiet. She finds Cassian on the terrace again, because it's where he always is when the world gets too heavy. "I found something." She sets the folder on the table beside him. Cassian opens it, eyes running over the numbers, the dates, the names. And then he stops. "Leo." Isolde nods, her throat tight. "Every transaction went through him. Every leaked piece of info had his approval. I'm sorry, Cassian." Cassian closes the folder slowly, fingers squeezing the edges until the knuckles go white. He doesn't shout. He doesn't throw anything. He just shuts his eyes and breathes deep, like he's trying to hold in something that's about to explode. "Thank you." He says it so softly she almost doesn't hear. Isolde wants to touch his shoulder, wants to say something that makes the pain go away, but she knows enough about pain to know some of it has no comfort. "If you need me, I'm here," she says, then leaves him alone with the truth that just destroyed his family. Scene 8. When everything breaks. Sensory intimate scene. The night Leo Moretti is confronted is the night everything Cassian built, not the empire, but the idea of family, of loyalty, of something still worth protecting, collapses like a house of cards. The confrontation happens in the office, the same office where Cassian signed papers that doomed men to die, where he closed deals that moved millions, where he tried, desperately, to keep the Moretti name above water. The curtains are drawn, only a desk lamp lighting the space with a thin gold that isn't enough. Outside, the rain is back, drumming the windows with rhythmic insistence, like the world is trying to come in. Leo denies everything at first, of course he does. He's got the same old charm, the smile that opened doors and disarmed people. But numbers don't lie. Transactions don't lie. And when Cassian lays the proof on the table, every transfer, every date lining up with every leak, Leo's smile dies. He gave me a choice, Leo finally says, voice low, defeated. Either I cooperated or he told you about... He stops, swallowing hard. About what? Cassian asks. But there's something dead in his voice, like he already knows that whatever Leo says, nothing will justify it. About what I did. That night. The accident. Leo stares at his hands. I killed that girl, Cassian. In the car, drunk. And you covered it up, and Volkov found out. The silence that follows is so dense it sucks the oxygen out of the room. Cassian doesn't shout. Doesn't smash anything. That would be too easy. It would let the pain out. Instead, he just says, with a calm far more frightening than any explosion, "Get out. Take what's yours and get out of my city. If I see you again, I won't treat you like a brother." Leo cries, begs, but Cassian's already turned his back, staring out the window, watching the rain like it might wash away what he just lost. When the door finally closes, the sound echoes through the entire house. Isolde is in her room when she hears it. Not the words, the walls are thick, built for privacy, but the tone, the heavy silence that follows. And then Leo's footsteps pounding down the stairs, fast, uneven, like a man fleeing. She waits 10 minutes, 15, staring at the ceiling, counting cracks that aren't there, deciding whether to go to him or give space to a man who clearly never asks for help. But then she remembers that night on the terrace, when he stood beside her without saying anything, just letting his presence be enough. And she decides maybe that's exactly what he needs now. Isolde pads down the stairs barefoot, quiet on the wood. The house is dark, only the office light leaking under the closed door. She hesitates with her hand on the knob, then slowly opens it. Cassian stands by the window, exactly where she expected, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight like he's holding up the world and the world's winning. He doesn't turn when she enters. "I heard," Isolde says softly, closing the door behind her. "Then you know I don't want company." His voice is rough, spent. "I know." She takes another step. "But I also know sometimes we need exactly what we don't want." Cassian finally turns his face, and the look on it makes her chest ache. It isn't anger. It isn't hate. It's pure, raw loss. The kind of pain that comes from losing someone you loved, even knowing they didn't deserve it. "He was my brother," Cassian says, each word torn out of him. "I covered for him. I lied for him, and he sold me out." Isolde doesn't say she's sorry. Words like that are too small for pain like this. Instead, she crosses the office, every step measured, giving him time to send her away if that's what he wants. But he doesn't. When she's close enough to feel his heat, she lifts her hand and carefully, very carefully, sets it on the sleeve of his sweater, just above his elbow. A small touch, almost nothing. But he shivers like she touched bare skin. "Cassian." She breathes his name, and there's something in how she says it, soft and steady at once, that makes something in him crack. He turns fully to her, and now they're face to face, so close Isolde can see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, see the way his jaw tightens, trying to hold control. "You're not alone," she says, moving her hand from his arm to his chest, right over his heart. She can feel it racing through the knit, feel the heat of his skin radiating. Cassian looks at her hand, then at her face, and something shifts in his eyes. The pain is still there, but now there's something else. Need. Raw. Desperate. Isolde. Her name scrapes out of him, rough, almost broken. And then he pulls her in. It isn't gentle. It's not the kind of kiss that comes after romantic dinners and carefully planned confessions. It's desperation and need, and 3 weeks of unresolved tension detonating at once. His mouth finds hers with a force that knocks the air from her lungs, his hands going straight to her waist, fingers digging through the thin cotton of her t-shirt, dragging her so close there's no space left, not even for breath. Isolde feels the world tilt, or maybe she's just losing balance, but then her back hits the wall by the window, and Cassian is pressing his whole body into hers like he's trying to fuse them, like he's trying to drown in her and forget everything that's burning outside them. Her hands go to his hair on instinct, fingers threading through the dark strands, hauling him deeper into the kiss. She hears a low sound rumble from his throat, half groan, half relief, and it sparks something in her she didn't know she'd been waiting for. The kiss is deep, almost violent in its intensity, tongues finding each other with a familiarity that shouldn't exist but does, like their bodies know something their minds are still denying. Cassian nips her lower lip, and Isolde arches into him without thinking, hips pressing in, and she feels his body answer instantly, heat and pressure making her gasp against his mouth. God, she whispers, when they break only enough to breathe, his forehead resting against hers, both of them panting, hot breath skating over skin. His hands are shaking. She can feel it through the cotton when one slides along her side, up slow, fingers tracing the curve of her ribs, stopping just below her breast like he's asking permission without words. Isolde answers by pulling him back into another kiss, slower this time, more deliberate. She feels every point of contact, the press of his chest to hers, their legs tangled, his hand finally lifting and cupping her breast over the t-shirt, his thumb brushing over the hardened nipple and sending a shiver through her whole body. Cassian! She says his name again, but now it isn't comfort. It's something else, charged and urgent. He buries his face in her neck, breath hot against the sensitive spot below her ear, lips mapping a line of kisses that make her knees go weak. She feels his teeth graze lightly, then his tongue follow, licking, sucking, leaving marks that'll last for days. Her hands roam his back, feeling the tense muscle through the sweater, wanting more contact, more skin. She drags the knit up, and he pulls away just enough to let her strip it. Off, and then he's there. Bare chest, golden skin in the dim light, the cut of his abdomen rising and falling with heavy breaths. Isolde spreads her hands over his chest, feeling heat, feeling his heart beating too hard, too fast. She skims her fingers over the scars. There are several, she notes, stories written in skin he's never told aloud. Cassian watches her explore, dark eyes tracking every move of her fingers. Then he catches her wrists gently, lifting her hands to his mouth, kissing the knuckles, the palm, the place where her pulse races under his lips. You drive me insane. He confesses against her skin, voice low, intimate, the kind of thing you only say in the dark. Since that night in the rain. Good. Isolde smiles, small but real. Because you drove me insane too. He laughs, a surprising sound in the middle of it all, and kisses her again, but different now. Slower, more aware. Like they finally have all the time in the world and want to use every second. His hands slide to the hem of her t-shirt, and he pauses, searching her eyes, waiting. She nods, and he lifts it off, revealing pale skin, ribs still faintly shadowed by fading bruises, the simple cotton bra she grabbed from the closet. Cassian looks at her like she's art, like she's something precious. And for the first time in years, Isolde doesn't feel broken. She feels seen. He draws a line with his fingertip from her throat down between her breasts, tracing each rib, stopping at her hip. She breathes deep, stomach trembling under his touch. "You're beautiful," he says. And it isn't like when Adrian said it, coded in possession and obsession. It's simple, true. Isolde pulls him back, and they move together to the leather couch in the corner of the office. She straddles his lap, knees bracketing his hips, and now she can feel everything. The heat, the pressure, the shared want burning between them. They kiss until lips swell, until breath comes ragged, until hands map every inch of available skin. Cassian kisses her neck, her shoulder, her collarbone, and when he reaches the space between her breasts, Isolde arches, head tipping back, fingers digging into his shoulders. He unhooks her bra with one hand, practiced, she notes vaguely, and then his mouth is on bare skin, hot and damp, tongue tracing circles that make her shudder. Cassian. She moans his name, and he answers with a low growl against her skin, hands gripping her hips, guiding the rhythm as she rocks against him, chasing friction, chasing relief. They stay like that, lost in each other, breath tangled, bodies moving in a wordless rhythm, until Cassian finally lifts her, carrying her to the big armchair by the cold fireplace, laying her down with care, covering her body with his. His weight on her is comforting, not threatening. And when he looks into her eyes, there's a question there. Silent, but clear. Yes. She answers, because yes is the only thing that makes sense now. And they stay together, skin to skin, until the rain stops outside, until the edges of the sky begin to pale, until hearts slow and lips grow tired of kissing. When they finally pull apart, still tangled in the chair, Cassian threads his fingers through her hair, brushing damp strands from her face, and whispers, "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in." Isolde cups his face, thumb tracing his jawline. "Me neither," she admits, "but we'll learn. Together." He closes his eyes, and for the first time since Leo walked out the door, Cassian doesn't look like a broken man. He looks like a man beginning again. They fall asleep like that, wrapped around each other, breathing in sync, hearts beating the same rhythm. But outside, at the edge of the property, hidden among the trees, a black car waits. And Adrian Volkov smiles, snapping a photo through the lens of a long-range camera. Scene 9, the invasion. It's 3 a.m. when it all falls apart. Isolde wakes to the sound of shattering glass. She bolts upright, heart racing, then hears the shouts, the muffled gunfire, chaos erupting downstairs. She runs to the door, but it's locked from the outside. Of course. Security. "Cassian!" she yells, pounding on the door. The door flies open to a kick, but it isn't Cassian. It's a man she doesn't know, black suit, empty eyes. He grabs her arm and she fights, kicks, screams, but he's stronger. She's dragged down the stairs, and the last thing she sees before being thrown into a car is Cassian on the far side of the hall, Matteo holding him back while he roars her name. And then everything goes black. When Isolde wakes, she's in a cold room, chained to a chair. The room smells like metal and mold. There's a high window, snow outside. She's not in Chicago anymore. The door opens, and Adrian Volkov walks in. He looks exactly like she remembers. Tall, blonde, handsome in a way that should soothe, but never does. He smiles when he sees her, and her stomach turns. "Hello, my dear." He comes closer, fingers skimming her face. She turns her head away, disgusted. "You really thought you could run from me?" "I did," Isolde spits. Adrian laughs, a sound without humor. "You did for 3 days, and now you're going to watch while I burn down everything Cassian Moretti built." Scene 10. The rescue. Cassian doesn't wait. He can't. Every second Isolde's with Volkov is another second he could lose her for good. Rosa tracks the location, an isolated property in upstate New York near the Canadian border. Cassian, Matteo, and Rosa roll within 2 hours. They arrive before dawn, snow dumping hard, cold, slicing. The property is a fortress. High fences, armed guards, cameras on every corner. Cassian doesn't care. He's going in, and he's coming out with Isolde. Or he isn't coming out. The breach is fast and brutal. Matteo and Rosa cover while Cassian pushes forward, every shot precise, every move calculated. He finds Isolde in the basement, chained but alive. Her eyes go wide when she sees him. Cassian! He shoots the chains, scoops her up, runs. But Adrian is waiting on the stairs. You think you can take her from me? Adrian levels his gun at Cassian. She was never yours, Isolde says, voice steady. Adrian laughs. Then I'll take from him what you took from me. But Isolde moves first. She takes Cassian's gun and fires. The crack ricochets through the room, and Adrian drops, eyes blown wide in shock. Isolde lets the gun clatter to the floor, hands shaking violently. Cassian hauls her in, and they run as the house collapses behind them. They make it back to Chicago, but everything is different. Cassian's empire is in ruins. Allies turned enemies. The Moretti name is scorched. Cassian could fight to rebuild, but when he looks at Isolde, he knows he doesn't want to. You lost everything because of me, Isolde says, voice breaking. Cassian frames her face in both hands. I lost an empire. But I found you, Isolde cries, and he brushes the tears away with his thumbs. And if that's not enough, then we'll make it enough. Rosa and Matteo say their goodbyes with promises of tables set in safer places. And at dawn, Cassian and Isolde leave, abandoning Chicago and everything they were. Epilogue. 6 months later, in a coastal town in Southern California, a mechanic named Luca fixes boats at the marina. Beside him, a writer named Isla writes stories about people who found second chances. No one knows who they really are. At night, they sit on the deck, the sound of the ocean filling the quiet. Cassian lights a cigarette, and Isolde takes his hand. We survived, she says. No. Cassian looks at her, and for the first time in years, there's peace in his eyes. We started over. Isolde smiles, and they kiss, slow and soft, like they have all the time in the world. But across the street, a man in a dark suit gets into a black car. In the rear view, Adrian Volkov, scarred but alive, smiles. The engine turns over. The car disappears into the night, and the ocean keeps going, like secrets are just one more wave passing by.